Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. I'm Will, that's Blake, and today we got a very special guest along with us, our boy Nate.
Ooh, baby.
Ooh.
Who's this guy?
Yeah, why is he in here? No, this is, as you guys may or may not know, Blake and I are long-term childhood friends. Nate is also a part of that crew. We've all known each other for what, like 25 plus years at this point.
Sad to say, yeah.
So yes, this is one of our OG partners in crime. And if you
I don't know why I thought you were going to say partner in Christ. I was like, where's this going? This is weird.
This is an intervention.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're familiar with us, maybe from Critical Role, I've been preaching the gospel of Critical Role to all my friends. I was able to snag Blake. Haven't been able to quite snag Nate yet, but we did snag him for The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. So he got in on the ground floor for this experience. And so we thought, hey, let's bring him on. And yeah, he's our extra special guest for this episode.
Yeah. We like to have some guest people come in every now and then. And Nate is definitely the best one we've had so far. We've had two. So that actually sounds very rude to our other guests.
Ken,
You're one of the two best
mean
ones. Yeah.
You're
definitely better than freaking, what was it, Jeremy? What's his name?
Oh, come on, bro. Let's not get into this.
I hope he's dead.
I don't know the backstory.
It's okay.
We won't get into it right now.
All right.
We got the
Nate,
Jeremy truthers up there. No, what's up though?
Whatever. How you doing today, Nate?
Man, I'm good. I'm just happy to finally get on a Pixelists episode. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah, well, you have done us a favor joining our humble little podcast, and I'm glad you're checking out the show too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm glad to finally be able to join you guys on a podcast adventure because it's been 5 years where I've really not been in the loop with Critical Role, so it feels good to finally be able to talk to you guys about anything.
Here's the deal, though. This isn't the first time we've done a podcast.
No, it's
not. It's not.
Remember the old days? We need to find the tape. Jamie, pull the tape up.
I wish we could.
It's like we actually recorded. I think this was before podcasts were a thing, right?
It was, bro.
Yeah.
If we'd actually followed through with that, we could be like bigger than Rogan, you know?
I think we were. I think this had to have been maybe 20 years, if not more, ago. But we recorded ourselves. We were in a room on microphones, just like a talk show almost. It was a podcast, is what it was. And yeah, I wonder what happened to that.
Gosh, that was actually, I think, right before college, maybe the summer before college.
Yeah.
And it was actually on that iMac I made a joke about earlier, which I sold to Dr. Phelan.
What?
I was desperately broke.
Who probably don't care, but
was the content still on it?
I think I wiped it. I don't know. I don't
probably
remember.
For the best.
I know.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I wish I still had, though. That would just be amazing to hear now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, for you guys who are tuning in, if it's your first time, thanks for checking out the Pixelist podcast. We just love to talk nerd stuff. And like Will mentioned, today we're going to be chatting about some WWW, which does that ping or is that clunky?
I don't know.
Text it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Worlds Beyond Number is like the name they're trying to like perpetuate out there, but then like The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One is the specific entity that we're talking about within that. Right. So yeah, I don't know. WWW doesn't really roll off the tongue, but
yeah,
it's a little clunky.
Yeah,
we'll keep shopping it a little bit. You guys tell us what you think in terms of
how do you guys refer to it?
Yeah. So, but having said that, do we have any announcements, Will, or are we good to dive into our recap?
I don't think we do. Do we? Do you know of any?
So we'll have another Critical Role episode to chat about. It's back from their break. That'll be later this week. So if you're checking out WBN and you want to know about other D&D content, you should check out some Critical Role, which we'll be chatting about.
Yep.
That may be it in the near future.
Yeah. And if we do have any of our, normal Critical Role folks that are watching this video, be sure to leave a comment chastising Nate for not watching Critical Role, and maybe we can get him looped in for campaign 4.
And
Yeah.
I need a super abridged version of the current campaign so I can
That's what the
catch up.
recaps are for, bro. You
Oh
know?
yeah, that's true.
We got a whole
Yeah.
playlist with your name on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But yeah, without further ado, again, if you're new to us, what we like to do is we'll launch into a quick recap of episode 3, just to get everybody up to speed and on the same page before we dive into our proper discussion. And we actually cut that recap out of the podcast and host it separately on YouTube for your viewing convenience. So if you find yourself on that recap video, be sure to check out the full episode, which we will link it down in the description below. And without further ado, I accidentally just turned off our cameras, but we're back. We're back. Without further ado, I will launch into that recap. So this is episode 3 of WWW, The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, The Charter. So we pick up with the gang, Ame, Suvi, and Ursulon, having just reunited after some number of years apart. The girls had found him at this circus and basically caught him up to speed on everything that had been happening surrounding Grandmother Ren's passing and the curse and their quest for the Wavebreaker's sword, which they need in order to find find these secrets and hopefully break the curse that is on Ame. And Ursulon actually revealed that, oh, I don't have that sword anymore. So they are now on the quest to go find the sword. So Ursulon goes to gather his things from the circus before they, head out on their journey. And he is sleeping with the animals outside. So he kind of goes to this like stable area, begins collecting his things. And Oscar, who is another actor from the circus that played the knight, shows up and is just checking on him, given the chaos that had happened in the episode prior. And basically for the first time, Oscar realizes that Ursulon has not just been putting on tons of makeup every week, that he is in fact a spirit, a wild one. And this catches him completely off guard. And he feels kind of like an idiot for only just now noticing. So because of this, Ursulon briefly fills him in on kind of an abridged version of his history and about his encounter with Sir Curran so many years ago, and how they now are on this quest for the sword, and that he will be leaving indefinitely. Oscar wishes him luck, and Ame actually gives Oscar this diamond pendant, which is one of her crafted spell tokens, and tells him that he should use it if he ever needs some inspiration during a performance. Also in this scene, Ursulon meets the fox familiar for the first time, and there's some great stuff that happens there. And he basically,
best character in this story.
He basically cements his place as the alpha between the two of them. The fox definitely just kind of bows down to him. And they also have a conversation about picking a name for the fox, but they don't really land anywhere. Ursulon then reveals that their journey will be taking them to Port Talon, which is a couple hundred miles up the coast, but it is on the same island and the same side of the coast that they're currently on, just on the complete opposite side. So they say we can either go by land or by sea, and they ultimately decide to go by sea. So they're going to travel to a nearby port town, as it were. And so they head out. But it starts getting late, and as they're traveling, they pass by this farmhouse with a woman outside kind of trying to comfort a crying baby. Ame walks up to her and offers her assistance as a witch in return for a place to sleep tonight for her and her friends. The woman gladly accepts, as hosting a witch is kind of a great honor, as it were. And that's where we go to break. If you would like to take it from there, my friend.
Yeah, so coming back from the break, they make it to the port town, and immediately Suvi is looking to use her clout as an Imperial to really get on the best ship possible. So they see this ship, this massive, beautiful ship, and Suvi's also just not used to slumming it as they are in this fish market. Very quickly steps up onto the ship, meets the captain, who is sort of barking orders at people, and immediately shows her staff sort of as like issuing like this dominance of like, hey, you should know who I am. And sure enough, the captain is like like, oh wow, I had no idea we would meet someone like you here. Like, what can we do for you? And Suvi's like, we need passage immediately. It's Imperial business. And the captain says, all right, well, we're going to Cairo. You're welcome to join us. And Suvi basically says, well, we're trying to get to Port Talon. And then there's this funny, like, sort of above the board conversation with the players of, like, I think Brennan jokes that he has like a piece of paper where he's like sketched like where things are. And Suvi's like, yeah, Cairo's kind of close. And Ursulan's like, it's not at all close. Like, come on. So then Suvi's next plan is, why don't I convince this gentleman to take us to Port Talon instead of Cairo? And so she has to roll a persuasion check with advantage because this particular ship is on like a merchant route, and to not go to Cairo would be money out of their pocket. She rolls very poorly. The captain basically says, well, if you can offer like a written assurance that we'd get our money back, we can take you to Port Talon, which she can't offer. And then finally, the captain basically says, well, if you'll basically pay the cost to go to Port Talon, we'll take you. And so he's like, sure, like, what is it? And he's like, it's going to be 2,000 gold.
Oh.
And yeah, they're like, gotcha. So we're going to go somewhere else. And the captain very generously says, go farther down the fish market. There's a small fishing vessel called the Rhone, and they'll be happy. They're going to Port Talon. They'll be happy to take you. Sure enough, they head down, and it's this little dinky ship with a couple of just overworked dock workers who are trying to load up the boat. They step onto the ship and meet Captain Imlis, who is immediately thinking, like, why are you guys here? Like, you're obviously a bit of a higher stature than what we would typically have on this ship. And Suvi basically says, hey, we heard you're going to Port Talon. Can you ferry us with you? And unlike the previous ship, Captain Imlis says, yeah, we could do it for 3 gold, which they happily pay. But they do mention that before they can make their way, the ship has to be loaded. And these 2 dock workers are just like ragged trying to load up the ship, which Ursulan goes down and in 15 minutes just like carries barrels of stuff, and they load it up easily. So all that to say, there's not like private quarters on the ship. They end up sleeping on like piles of like potato sacks. Suvi is like constantly just like bemoaning like the fact like, oh, this is not what I envisioned. And there was this funny moment where she mentions like, I'm exhausted. I've been exhausted all day. And Ami's like, it's 11 a.m. Like the day just started. But basically that evening they pass the time swapping stories. Suvi talks about the Citadel and sort of like the beauty of this place, which is really kind of wowing to the other 2 who never have lived in such an extravagant place. Ame tells an interesting story about Grandmother Wren making her stand in a fireplace, which they want to go back to and talk about at some point. And ultimately, Ursulan tells about the sword being given to a hedge mage by the name of Finley, who they'll be looking for once they reach port in Port Talon. All that to say, the next day goes on pretty normally. It gets to evening, and before they go to bed, they each kind of do their own little tasks. Ame sort of cozies up with the blue blanket or whatever you would call it that Suvi had given her. Ursulan and Suvi decide to spar a little bit with a makeshift sword and a mop. And then Ame decides to start working on some enchantments and some trinkets just to pass the time. And as the episode's wrapping up, Captain Imlis is actually walking by, and there's a light that's gone out and a candle that's sputtered out, and strikes up a conversation with Ame. And it's kind of like, what are you working on? Like, what is all this stuff? And Ame's very open to share a little bit about her customs as a witch, until Captain Imlis makes a comment and says, you know, I've met a lot of witches. None were as kind as you, which is interesting to Ame because Grandmother Wren talks about being the last witch, or possibly one of the last witches. So she says, well, you've met a lot of witches. And to that, Captain Imlis says in a very foreboding way, you know, yeah, you're a small, nice little witch, aren't you? And Brennan describes Captain Imlis's mouth opening up and darkness slithering out. When that's where the episode ends, and that's what happened in episode 3, the charter of this episode. So,
Yeah. What a
of
cliffhanger.
the Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. Excuse me.
WWW.
Cliffhanger. WWW. I was going to say it, then I was like, I don't want to say it now. Then I couldn't think of what I was going to sub it with. But
yeah, once again, if you find yourself on our recap and you want to dive into our full thoughts and discussions on this episode, it will be linked down below. But yeah, guys, without I was gonna say without further ado, but I don't really know why. What'd you guys think of the episode? And I guess we're not used to having 3 people, but whoever wants to go
we'll
first.
just round robin it.
Yeah.
Nate, what'd you think about the episode?
Man, I mean, I love the cliffhanger. That was really the moment where I was like, man, I can't wait until the next episode. But overall, it was kind of a slower episode. It was kind of a travel episode, which are necessary in these sort of stories. But I liked kind of it just kind of gave an opportunity for some character building and some more backstory, and just to kind of get to know the main cast a little bit better. And the prelude and the first 2 episodes were just like kind of packed with story moments. So it's kind of nice to have more of a like chill, kind of just meandering kind of episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it was slower. And by the way, I didn't mean to like clear my throat while you were speaking. I thought I was muted, but I was like,
Oh, no.
while you were mid conversation. But it was slower, and I haven't quite. I love the episode, but I haven't quite decided how I feel about the pacing overall, because and I don't think it's unfair to bring in Critical Role, not in an obnoxious way, but what I'm used to, like habitually speaking, is every week 4 hours of content.
Yeah.
So to get the 1 hour, 1 hour and change with a commercial in the middle there, it's definitely different. And I haven't decided quite how I feel about it yet. Other than that, I really like the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will.
Same, basically. Yeah, I mean, not to just repeat what you said, but I really enjoyed the episode. I've really been enjoying this whole series so far. But yeah, just it left me wanting more. Like just an hour and a half, again, coming from Critical Role, just feels like such a tease, especially since it's 2 weeks between each episode, as opposed to basically every week with CR. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of I don't even know if I'm calling that a criticism. I'm not, but that aside, which really has nothing to do with the content of the episode itself, like I don't have any complaints. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and like we mentioned, that cliffhanger really sunk its teeth into me, and so I'm glad that tomorrow, now that it's been 2 weeks, we can finally dive in and see what's going on there.
As is tradition, recording episodes right before the new one drops.
Hey, we're
always my
making
fault,
it in,
by the way. So, especially because now, for you guys who are watching now, my wife loves D&D, but she can't follow Critical Role. But so we are watching Worlds Beyond, listening to Worlds Beyond together. So you would think in like the shorter form content that Will and I would get these episodes out quicker, but I feel like, Will, you're beholden to my wife and I's driving time together. So
hey, we're getting it in. That's all that matters. But so yeah, loved the episode. I feel like, I mean, we don't really have an organized plan here. But I guess let's start at the end, because
that's us,
yeah. Just because we were just talking about the cliffhanger, feels like we could just jump into that real quick.
Yeah.
One, I want to know what y'all's thoughts on maybe what's happening there is, and obviously no one knows, especially this world is brand new. Like literally no one knows what this could necessarily mean. But interested to hear y'all's, shots in the dark on it. The thing that really stood out to me is the smoke, the darkness coming out of the mouth, which reminded me of the smoke that came out of Ame and Grandmother Rin's mouths in the earlier episodes, which denotes like someone being cursed. So I'm curious if that's the same thing that's going on here or not. Like I don't think it has to be, but it could be, So is it is it that Captain Imlis is cursed and like some other entity or something else is like possessing her or, using her as a vessel right now? Or is it not related to that at all? And this is just, a similar dark aesthetic for whatever's happening.
Well, Brennan didn't say smoke. He said darkness slithers out. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's a reach, but I could see it being something separate. I actually thought there were some similarities with The Stranger, with how he described like the moon, because there were a couple of things that were interesting. The candle sputtered and went out. That was the start of the moment of the captain squeezing by, was to relight the candle.
Right.
So the candle sputtered, similar to when the stranger came to Grandmother Wren's house. The magical candle that's supposed to light up when someone comes to the door was out. So we have a light that's out. We also have the description that Brennan used, similar to the stranger, of the moon casting a long shadow like across the water. Almost like I can't think of the movie. I can't think of the movie, but I don't know. Just there's some similarities in how and I don't know. I don't think necessarily I don't think it really adds up to be like this is the stranger, since there was this bargain of 1 year. But it seems like maybe there's like a shoulder partner there of like from a similar spiritual origin. Maybe his domain. I don't know.
Yes, that's interesting. I didn't even consider the stranger, but there definitely were some similarities there. But yeah, I would wonder if like you mentioned, the bargain, would he really just instantly like, and I know you're not saying that you're shipping that it's him, but that would be my hesitancy as well.
The movie I was thinking of was what's with Patrick Swayze, where he dies?
Ghost?
And yes, Ghost.
Great movie.
Where what is it like, the bad guy, when he dies, the spirits, like the shadows come and like pull him away, and it's like
they like take him to hell, I think, right?
Dude, that like terrified me as a child.
Man, I had blocked that out of my memory.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
But when Brennan describes like the long shadows, like he did with this, that's kind of where my mind goes to, is like something very nefarious about the shadow. What was your take, Nate?
It's interesting hearing you guys, because my take was that it was just straight up the stranger. Like it was the same voice. Like Blake said, all the clues, like all the little hints were there that matched when he visited the cabin. And I just assumed he had possessed the captain's body. And like she's not him. Like she's gonna come back and be herself again once he leaves. But that's what I assumed anyway. Like I just thought he was stopping by to say hello and just kind of intimidate Ame a little bit.
Oh, see, that's interesting, because I was thinking next episode we were going to get like our first big foray into combat, but it would be interesting if it was less forward in terms of like actual combat. Like I've caught you outside of Grandmother Wren's house, and more like you said, like checking in. Which, to be fair, and you guys who watched our previous discussion, there still isn't agreement on if the stranger's good or bad.
Right.
It could be the stranger is the more, I don't want to say anti-hero, that's not the wording I mean, but an ally, but like not your typical, what's the phrasing I'm thinking of? Like not like your like knight in shining armor kind of ally, but like an unlikely ally. I don't know.
Like he's not necessarily like evil.
Yeah.
So I think it was in the second episode. It might have been the first, where they mentioned that the wild ones were originated from like a sun and a moon kind of like deity.
Yeah. Right.
Like
yeah.
And is the implication that the stranger might be the moon deity himself, or is
that's interesting,
more open-ended?
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it is open-ended, but that could certainly be the case. Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty compelling when you think about it.
Yeah.
The description of like the stars and the moon, and then like doesn't he say something about like I've held my breath since the dawn of time or something?
Yeah, there was something
Mhm.
like that.
Which is such a great line.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's no air in
Yeah.
space. No one can hear
Mhm.
you scream. It's just like quicksand, you know?
Yeah, and just him showing up, it made night come with him and kind of stop time. Like
Yeah.
that feels very moon-like.
Yeah. Did you say Moon Knight?
That's a that's a different podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'm I wasn't like I know you said it was the same voice. That didn't register for me, and I didn't like go back and look or anything. But Blake, did you think it was the same voice too? Like I want to go back and listen now.
I would say it's hard to say because the first voice was so edited, produced, I guess,
Yeah.
and horrifying. This one was definitely
Yeah.
less nightmare fuel. Yeah, I don't know. I do think Nate's onto something though about some of the themes seem to be continuing on across episodes.
hmm
Yeah.
And one thing that Will brought up was the curse that was on Grandma Ren, and I think there's a lot more to that specific story point because the stranger showed up as soon as the curse was, gone because she passed away, and it might have been third party that was keeping the two, like the stranger and Grandma Ren, separated, or something along those lines.
Yeah. Totally
Because
could be.
yeah, but totally like guessing on that part.
Yeah, I think that the whole curse, which Ame has it too, and these secrets that they have to go like retrieve or what have you, seems like one of the central
hmm
mystery boxes of the show, as it were, which I'm assuming is probably at least tangentially tied to what happened to Suvi's parents and whatever was going
Yeah.
on that night. But yeah, I'm really curious on exactly how to parse the stranger. I mean, if the captain is the stranger or not, just kind of meta above that. I'm really curious, because it would be interesting if he was uh the moon spirit, or at least tied to it. He definitely seems like one of the ancient ones in any
Yeah.
case. But yeah, we I guess we still never thought of the word, if it's anti-hero or whatever, but to me, I do land on the page in that he's not strictly evil. I don't think he's good by any means, but he has a purpose, and he's trying to serve that purpose. Like kind of like the Grim Reaper. They're not necessarily evil, they're just here to ferry, souls or whatever, which maybe he serves a similar role since he showed up when Rin died. But yeah, I still don't know if I'm on the ship it page that this is the stranger, but I kind of hope that it is, just to learn more about him, because
Yeah.
it's so fascinating.
It does, like Nate said, it does feel like sort of a body snatcher kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because I mean, otherwise it doesn't make sense that they would choose that ship. They would be sent to that ship. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't really
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. So it seems like some kind of body snatcher thing. Which have they talked in the fireside chats about like spirits and how they interact with people? Like, is there like possession or things like that?
So okay, so the most recent fireside chat that came out wasn't about this episode. Instead, it was like a cumulative let's talk about the children's adventure episode. And I haven't finished the children's adventure yet, so I haven't listened to it. But the fireside chat for this episode and episode 4 is going to be combined, and that'll come out. So not tomorrow, Tuesday, but next Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay.
But so in the first 2 fireside chats, no, they hadn't really touched on that. But we might find out.
They did talk, or am I mixing things up? They did talk about like the rules that spirits follow, or I guess
Yes.
Brennan called them like the taboos.
Yes.
Which we got a nod to in this episode of Ursulon mentioning like I can't do beds. I still can't do beds.
Yes.
So I'm curious to learn more about like spirits in general, I guess, and if possession is something that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I bet at least some spirits can. I don't know if it will be a universal thing necessarily, but yeah, the 3 taboos are like beds, doors and the sun. So yeah, I thought I was going to bring that up too, that he brought up he still has the bed thing, which in the way it was brought up kind of to me implied that maybe that's something you could overcome potentially. Like he was revealing that, oh, that's still a thing. But maybe that's me reading too deep into it and that's just like normal conversation. But I don't know. What did either of you parse that?
I don't do beds. Just a casual detail.
That's really interesting. I actually hadn't picked up on that aspect of Ursulon as like anything more than just like a characterization of him personally. So it's cool
Mhm.
that it's like tied into the Wild Ones as a whole.
Yeah, so it's a little piece from the children's adventure where Brennan has Lou roll for 3 categories: bed, sun, and door, and it's like something all spirits have to contend with, and based on his scores is kind of how he deals with them. And so the bed one is sleeping in beds. Doors is like being able to go through thresholds, and then sun is like being able to be out during the day or not. Um, which clearly citing back to the stranger, he must not be able to be in the sun, which is why he brings night with him.
Well, and also, Nate, you weren't. I don't know if you listened to our previous episode, but we also what I was sharing because I think you watched Angel or Buffy the Vampire Slayer because I was giving a little shout out to it, and we got in the comments. I saw you guys who were you watched it too, but the stranger it seemed like was unable to enter the home. And it reminded me of like vampires from Buffy or Angel, where they had to be invited in, which I'm sure is not even. I'm sure that was lifted from like, mythology or something. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's actually one of the things that made the stranger so frightening was that Ame intuitively knew not to let him in.
yeah,
And just kind of her gut instinct was like, this guy's not coming inside.
mm-hmm.
Which was made it more frightening to me because she's very competent and powerful already, and
Mm-hmm.
she was like scared out of her mind.
I feel like Brennan, just through coincidence, has been able to add another name to the stranger. Because you talked, Will, about how Erika and Aabria just sort of casually started calling it the stranger. And so now that's like how they colloquially, like, oh, yeah, the stranger. And we heard it in the intro where Brennan was like, yeah, the stranger. Well, so now the stranger has, because of that, if the number of names is equal to how powerful they are, this figure coincidentally now has an additional name, which I just thought was kind of a nice, like a neat little detail, was even more powerful than originally was described, I guess.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So,
which
go ahead.
I was just gonna, not to bog down on the stranger the whole time, but as we were talking about it, I was just thinking, and I wonder, like you would think that Grandmother Rin would warn Ame about this entity. If whatever was going on, like maybe if it is the Grim Reaper, or if it is something else, that Grandmother Rin probably knew that like her passing would summon this man in a way. So I wonder if that's one of the things she thought she did tell her,
right,
and has been obscured by the curse, or if, and so maybe he's looped into this whole thing that's going on more so than just coming to ferry a soul, if he even is akin to anything like that.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just here to pick up the package that
he owes me money.
Man, did you forget? Well, what else? So we had the great cliffhanger ending, and of course, Lou, Erika, and Aabria are just amazing together. I mean, it's so fun listening to them. But what else do we want to talk about from this episode? It was a shorter episode, only just a little over an hour, about an hour and a half with the commercial break. Other things that you guys want to park on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Nate, go ahead if you got something off the jump.
Well, I this isn't specific to this episode, but it's something Blake brought up earlier, that there hasn't been any combat yet. And I was just wondering what you guys thought about that, and like kind of the tonal difference between Worlds Beyond Number so far and something like Critical Role? Like, how do you guys feel about the kind of overall vibe of the show in that way? Or do you think there will be more traditional, like, Critical Role style combat as the show develops?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Blake.
I think just speaking for myself, and I say this because we have people on the channel who exclusively have followed Dimension 20 and people who've exclusively followed Critical Role. And let me just kind of be clear from the get-go that no comparison is meant to be opposing, I guess, especially considering that both these organizations have been very kind to one another and have invited one another on their shows. It's very amicable. So our intention is to also speak of it in that way as well. But it's undeniable how, and I said this earlier, how much of a habit it's become watching Critical Role and getting used to that style. So yeah, Nate, I don't know yet how. I think once we have like a season of Worlds Beyond, whatever that looks like, I don't really see it being like a 3-year campaign similar to like a Critical Role, only because from the get-go they said like we want to tell a variety of stories, which I wouldn't be against if it was that long. I just don't expect it to be. But I do wonder once everything's said and done how it will feel as a whole compared to Critical Role, because Critical Role is extremely long burn. In that you're committing to a long time to hear a story from start, middle, and end. Having said that, with the short form content, I'm really curious how like an episode of combat will go, and also what this is like theater of the mind, even elevated. Excuse me, because we can't see it, and so. I am really curious how that all is going to play out and if it's going to feel clunky or if they'll sort of homebrew a style of combat that works for audio. What do you think, Will?
Well, quote tweet pretty much everything you just said. I'm with you. I will say that I think this is intended to be like a multi-year campaign akin to Critical Role. But that being said, obviously we're only getting an episode every other week, and they're like a half, if not a third, of the length of a Critical Role episode. So even if it lasts 3 years, it may be a fourth of the size of a Critical Role campaign. But they have used language in like the fireside chat and stuff, implying that this was going to be like a really long form story. And kind of on that same vein, though, if I park right there for just a brief second, I don't think that means we won't get whatever's next from Worlds Beyond Number until this is over. I think we might get like multiple avenues at the same time, because even in this episode, they already teased their next thing, right? In the ad break, he said like Taylor was teasing the next game, saying it wasn't D&D and that there was going to be a different game master. Right?
I thought
I make
they
that
were
up?
teasing. I thought they were saying like, "Hey, we do this a lot, and here's another group that we do it for that you should check out."
Okay.
But I didn't interpret it as like, "Here's Worlds Beyond's next project." I
think it's both. I think they did what you're talking about, Blake, and they also did like a brief tease of like, "Oh, should we talk about our next Worlds Beyond Number thing? No, let's not talk about it yet." And it was kind of a little like gag in the middle of the ad break.
Yeah, okay.
So I think y'all are both correct.
Yeah, because I think there was not in episode 2, maybe there was like an ad for a whole nother.
Yeah, maybe that's
like Dark Horse Productions.
Yeah.
D&D or whatever it may be. But I'm not confident enough to like say either way. But and I guess it's neither here nor there. But my assumption is that this is going to be a long form thing, and that we'll probably get other stuff along the way. But to go back to your original question, yeah, I'm kind of with you. Obviously, I come from Critical Role, and this is D&D. This is, very similar in lots of ways, but I'm almost treating it as like a whole different flavor of soda. It leans more audiobook to me than D&D thus far. But it's kind of because we haven't really had a true combat yet. My assumption is that we will get that. Like, they're obviously using 5e as their rule set, so I don't imagine them just like going somewhere completely bonkers for combat out of nowhere. but I imagine like the rest of the show, it'll be highly edited, and so it won't be like, combat and Critical Role can take an hour, 2 hours sometimes. They obviously have 7 people, and
And you have my favorite Ashley Johnson. What am I doing? What's my and I love Ashley Johnson. I'm just saying that jokingly. I'm not trying to be harsh, but any D&D table you have, you just have people who, hey, it's your turn. Oh yeah. Oh crap. Well, okay, where am I on the board? So I think you're right. I think all of that getting edited out can make it a much faster pace, I guess.
Yeah, so that's my assumption for how it'll be. I still think we'll get the rolling and stuff, but it'll just be like all the dead space cut out essentially. But I am really curious just to see, because I mean, who knows? Maybe they go somewhere completely off the wall with it. And I kind of forgot even where I was, but that was the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, are we moving, or is there something else here that we?
The only other small detail I would say is just I'm excited for combat because we'll get a more fleshing out of if Suvi's character is your stereotypical wizard, or if there's something homebrewed about it. It's like wizard in name alone, similar to Ursulon, the class he's playing, and then more specifically, Ame. We're getting a nice little detail into like the culture of a witch, but not in terms of like what their action options are in combat. So I'm excited for that, just to kind of see like a fuller class perspective.
Yeah, me too. Do we know what level they are?
No idea, actually. And that's another reason why I think it's maybe fair for you to say, when you were saying earlier, like it might not be quite as D&D as we expect it, in that we haven't gotten those qualifiers, I guess, that people typically like operate at. Oh, I'm level this. I have this many spell. They haven't even mentioned spell slots at all. And so I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think we'll know for sure next episode, kind of like what the framework they're building on when it comes to like the rules of play, I guess.
Yeah. I will say in the children's adventure, they get into it a little bit.
Okay.
So like it definitely is 5e with like in terms of like your stat, like strength, charisma, all that type of stuff. And I haven't finished the children's adventure, so they might even get into it more than I'm aware of, but there is at least enough of it there to know that like that is what they're doing. So, but I mean, how heavily are they going to lean on it? We're not sure. But yeah, really interested to see kind of that get expanded on.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing I wanted to mention on, if we were cool to jump a little.
Yeah, for sure.
Is when Oscar is talking to Ursulon at the beginning of the episode, and he finds out about Sir Curran. He mentions like he's like, you met a knight? Like those haven't existed in ages. Or the comment was something like that. Which we've kind of had a few peppered comments like that. So I'm wondering, like, are knights not a thing anymore, period? Like it wasn't just like, oh, Sir Curran, like I know that name, he's real old. It was like, no, like the focus was on knights at all. And so like what happened? Why are there no knights anymore? And maybe there are, but I wonder if it's related to what happened with Suvi's parents, or like, I don't know, did that even like ping for you guys? Or
yeah, that definitely stuck out to me, and it made me wonder how much time had passed since, what's that guy's name? Sir
Curran.
Sir Curran. How long had passed since Ursulon met him at all?
So I kind of have an answer to that, but it's from the children's adventure, if you guys care.
Okay.
I mean, I won't speak for Nate. I don't care.
Yeah. I'll probably listen to it at some point, but I don't mind.
All right. So, Ursulon comes out as a kid, meets Sir Curran, goes back through the portal to like go share with his brothers and sisters, and then he exits again later, and that's when he runs into Suvi and Ame. So between when he was talking to Sir Curran to when he then meets Suvi and Ame has been 200 years, give or take.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah,
Great
there's some
detail.
like big time dilation between, kind of like with the Feywild and
Feywild Timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that mean that knights are, you know, more special than they would normally be, like in our context of knights? Like, are they something on the order of like a Jedi or something like that that is special in some way? Or is that just all speculation?
Yeah, I don't know because it's been kind of, I think intentionally, we're just kind of getting a little glimpse here and
Mhm.
there, and we can't really put together the whole picture. But yeah, it seems like either they're ultra rare or they don't exist anymore.
I
And
didn't even pick up on. I thought he was just astonished he met a knight. Just that they're very like they're a rare breed. Like they're extremely important people. Um,
and that might
but
be the case. I
Okay.
might be
Yeah,
like
that could totally be
kind of
true.
misremembering exactly. Like I just have a note, and I don't know
yeah,
if like
but
it's accurate.
the 200 years things is a great detail because there was a comment on like if he was still around or something, and Ursulon says no, like he's long gone, like something like that.
Yeah, I
Which
think
I was thinking, did
Suvi
something
goes
happen?
in. Or wait, I might be thinking of the Children's Adventure. But yeah,
Someone either Oliver or someone says something about it, and Ursulon's like, no, it's the person's long gone. But the
yeah.
200 years makes sense in that context. Um, but speaking on that, I do these like questions are really fun because it's it's nice getting these little glimpses of the world Brennan's building. And especially like every time spirits are brought up, just like this interaction between people in the spirit world. And it's very much what's that Disney movie where it's like the I have all these like examples that I can't name, and so it ends up just being like, what are you talking about? But point being, like there's this interesting. I think when he realizes when Oliver, it's Oliver, right?
Oscar.
Oscar, excuse me. When Oscar realizes Ursulon is a spirit, Ame says like he's an honored friend, which so clearly that title means something,
Mm.
and it is also kind of sad. I mean, Oscar talking about like when I was a kid, I dreamed about meeting a spirit, and so there's very much like this you know history with spirits and like appreciation. And I think then there's that hedge mage from episode 1 who obviously wanted to take advantage of Ursulon. But I don't know. I'm excited just to keep seeing like these interactions and what it ends up looking like, I guess.
Yeah, me too. It's so cool to like since this is brand new and fresh. It's so cool to like try to piece together the lore of the world since it's not known yet. Unlike most IPs, I guess, because you could just go Google it. Like, what's this mean? So that's part of the fun of it for me. Speaking of hedge mage, we learned a little bit more about what that actually means, and that it's somebody who studies magic or knows magic outside of like the main
Yeah.
university. Like, they didn't learn at Hogwarts; they taught themselves, type of thing.
Well, not
Um,
even self-taught. I think he even said like occult. Like these are like the more maybe like he didn't say forbidden magic, but that's like where my mind went was like it's not like someone like teaching themselves like a parlor trick, but like more rough and questionable practices, I guess.
yeah, I think I think yes, that's true, but I think it is also just like a catch-all because he said like Ame would technically be considered a hedge mage.
Well,
You know,
he said people might call witches a hedge mage, but that'd be the dumbest thing they'd ever do. But like other
right?
people would potentially, but Brennan wasn't saying like, yeah, witches are technically hedge mages. But I guess it's semantics, really. I mean, because they do have their own practice, so I guess that's fair.
But yeah, I was gonna bring it up, but you already did. That guy the guy from episode 1 was a hedge mage. I had been wondering what that title meant. Like I thought it might
Yeah.
be like a Citadel title, but so I guess now the implication is that guy was just kind of a bounty hunter or like a mercenary of some sort, more in that vein, as opposed to like an elite assassin, as it were, or
Yeah.
anything like that. Um, so yeah, and we're looking for Finley, who is a
Right.
hedge mage now.
Yeah.
Interesting. Um, yeah, and by the way, anybody just cut me off if you've got something. But the speaking of Finley, he's in Port Talon, which speaking on like piecing together the different lore as we're finding it out, it's also kind of fun to piece together the world map.
Yeah.
So we know we're in Joris, or we're near it at least. That's where they last were, and we're sailing to Port Talon, which is on the continent of a comb, I guess.
Yeah,
Or
and it's the same coast,
same coast,
northeast.
northeast.
Yeah,
And then we have Caro, which is north, or I think Port Talon's northwest, Caro northeast.
I think it's the other way
Might be
around.
swapped. Might be swapped.
I don't know.
But Caro, I think is another place. Like I don't like it's its own, like on another continent, I think.
I don't
Right?
know. I have no idea. We
Anyway,
we need a map that's more than
Yeah.
Brennan's paper notes.
Right. So I'm trying to keep track of like the little different points we find out, and then I might try to like do a 5-year-old children's drawing of what the map could be.
For 30,000 Patreons, I'm definitely looking for more like fan content, like someone to like build out their version of the map, like that kind of stuff. And if you guys watching the channel, if you know anyone who's doing stuff like that, we'd love to promote them on the show. Just because, I mean, I think it's just great just to continue to promote this kind of content. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see something like a map.
Yeah, me too. I don't think we'll get an official one for a long time because I think Brennan even said it, like he's still building it. But for fan made, for sure. I want to see what people can come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that's really exciting to be part of like this as it's starting is like just talking to you guys right now. It's like going forward, I wanna try to pay more careful attention and like maybe take notes along the way and kind of try to piece it together a little bit more clearly because I'm listening to it while I'm like walking my dog and I'm like distracted by traffic or whatever and I miss little bits. So going back through it like this is like so helpful. I couldn't even remember Finley's name before this recap started. So there's just so much information to take in.
Hell yeah, Nate Dogg, future theory buster over here. I'm ready. So yeah, I wonder. One, I'm just curious. Why did Ursulon give this hedge mage the sword? I feel like knowing what we know about hedge mages now is that I feel like he's not going to have it anymore once they get to him, and it'll be, the princess is in another castle type of situation where we got to go on to the next point.
Maybe. I mean, it could be maybe they get the sword and it's just that was just like the starting step for like the next. It's hard to know, really.
Yeah, good point.
I'm okay with either situation. If it's like this is the main quest for now, or whatever.
Yeah.
They're definitely gonna fight the stranger and beat the game next episode.
Campaign 1 is complete.
They're like, we are done. Episode 4 in the books.
So you guys might be able to help me understand that, like the mission that they're on to get the sword will somehow reveal to them the information that Ame has received and isn't allowed access to, or now that Grandma Rin's gone, how are they going to like get the information?
They said the sword specifically has the power of disenchantment, which is not a 5e spell, but it is a D&D spell of exactly as it sounds. It basically I think it just either destroys a magical item or it can like reduce a magical item into like its base elements or something. But so presumably they will kill Ame with it and it'll but no, yeah, I guess in some way they'll just know how to use it to break the curse and then the memories will flood back. I'm not quite sure, honestly.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't remember the exact language, but my understanding was that it could help them find where the secrets are to begin with somehow. Yeah. I don't know, Brennan, uses very like beautiful, first of all, language. So I never know like what is just like a beautiful description versus like an intentional like anyway. So it might not like the sword might not like literally scry and give them a place to go necessarily, but I think he said the sword can help them find it and then it can help them like cleave the lock off
cut it
of
loose.
Yeah, like so you can find the secrets and then you can also release the secrets, be it disenchantment, be it whatever that may mean. So the mechanics of what exactly happens there, I don't know, but yeah, it seems like once they find the sword, they'll then have the next clue or the next step to take as far as figuring out this curse on Ame and maybe what she forgot or maybe what she never even was able to be told. And that's another central mystery we've kind of already touched on, but like, did Grandmother Rin tell Ame these things and just neither of them can remember now? Or did perhaps Grandmother Rin tell somebody else pretending to be Ame, or just, whatever the case may be. But yeah, the sword will help them uncover that in one way or another, apparently.
All right. Well, do you guys have any other things you want to mention before we wrap up?
Let me scoot through my notes real quick, but go ahead.
I just was gonna say I love the fox so much.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yes, me too.
Fox is the best.
All those interactions were so great. I'm so glad Lou came at it with that that adversarial kind of aggressive relationship too.
Yes, and Brennan's the way the fox reacted was perfect as well, just immediately submitting to the alpha.
Yeah.
I love the ongoing joke about the naming him and something like, if you were in a room full of 1,000 Charlies, how would you know which one's me, or something like that. It was just very witty and quick humor from Brennan, which is I guess what he's great at.
Yeah, I've definitely been shamelessly thinking of how I can pull the Fox's persona into my own campaign.
Just do it.
Because he's just so great. I love in episode 2, can you give us a moment? And he's like, sure.
Yeah.
Stands there.
Yeah.
So good. The only other thing I wanted to briefly mention, in 2 parts. One, after Suvi and Ursulon spar, she mentions, I haven't played since that summer. Not too much to touch on there, but I just thought it was interesting that basically ever since that summer they met as kids, she's been at the Citadel, studying.
Book junkie.
Yeah. Has had no childhood outside of that,
Right.
It's kind of anyway, I just thought it was an interesting character insight. And then also one other thing she said, or I think she said it, but the revelation that the Citadel, which is in this desert, it wasn't always a desert. It used to be this forest until wizards got feisty.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what the lore is behind that. Is it something ancient that happened? Could it be related to the night everything went down with her parents? And we might know the answer to that. I just haven't gone back to look in terms of if their sand was mentioned back during that first episode. But yeah, not too much to say about it, but did want to mention it. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I missed that completely. So that's cool.
Well, let us know what you guys thought about the episode, some of your favorite parts, and your own theories on what the heck's going on in terms of this cliffhanger, or other details we maybe missed on the episode today. And also, be sure to give our friend Nate some love. He is, by the way, a freaking amazing artist. He actually has a couple of cool D&D styled doodles on his YouTube channel, which you can just search Nate Berna, which we should just put a link to that in the comments down below. But it's also at Super Mistland as well on YouTube. And he's an incredible artist, so definitely show him some love. So
100%. Anything else you want to plug, Nate Dog?
No, that's really it. I've just been trying to build a little YouTube channel these past couple months, so that's kind of the main page right now.
Hell yeah. So do us a favor, definitely check him out, throw him a subscription. And don't forget, we're everywhere. You can find us as well. Twitter, TikTok, Discord. So if you enjoy talking Worlds Beyond Number, you enjoy talking nerdy stuff, there will be a link down in the description below. Would love to have you come join us. Other than that, just a quick thumbnail, gentlemen. We could just do generalized excitement, or if anybody has any other ideas.
I'm down with excitement.
Let's do it.
All right. All right, let's go. Yeah. Beautiful.
I hate those guys.
Me too.
All right.
Well, y'all, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys having me on.
Anytime, brother. All right, we'll catch you later, guys.
Bye, y'all.
See you guys.